Welcome to the Movie Master channel, where we like to talk about, review, and rank movies and TV. Today we're going to be talking about WANDAVISION. The first season premiered in January, and now we're going to be ranking every single episode. This is a community rank, which means I didn't have any input in this, but I will share my thoughts. Let's start. Starting off at the bottom of the list, in last place, is WandaVision Episode 1, filmed before a live studio audience. Now, this is one of the more boring episodes of the beginning of WandaVision because it kind of has very to little no action, and it's a lot of dialogue, which I don't really like, and I guess you guys don't like that either. And this episode actually made me not want to watch Episode 2. Eventually I did, as the third and fourth episode came out, but this kind of turned me off of the show, and I think it did for a lot of people. This is a very boring episode, and I think Wanda and Vision are pretty unlike themselves, and I think it's not what people are expecting, but it kind of introduces this sitcom-esque that the rest of the show kind of like takes part of, and I think it actually, looking back on it, it does a better job. But I think this deserves to be at the bottom of the list. Okay, in the number 8 spot is Episode 2, Don't Touch That Dial. While it seems pretty similar to the first episode, it does improve on some parts, and by going back to it after you finish the entire season, it does get better. Like with the helicopter and Jimmy Woo on the loudspeaker, it really gets better as it goes on, and I think this definitely got better as it went on, and like the final parts of it were actually kind of like horror-y, which I like that, but I think that this episode kind of set the groundwork for some of the later episodes, especially Episode 4, which is one of my favorites, and I think that it really helped understand the whole what's happening, and it definitely set foot for a lot of speculation and other stuff like that. Okay, next on the list, continuing with the theme of counting backwards, we have Episode 3, Now in Color. Now, this is one of the first episodes that I was excited to watch, and when it actually came out, I did watch it on the Friday that it came out, but I thought it was still kind of missing something that the later episodes filled in. And I think that it was really fun episode, but I liked the addition of Monica Rambeau and all that sort of like weird stuff that happened at the end of the episode. But overall, the beginning kind of like was a little weird, and the fact that Wanda was getting more and more pregnant in just a couple days, and but it definitely felt like a sitcom, and it definitely felt like something from the 80s, which I think that's where the time period they were trying to go off of. Might have been the 70s, but yeah. In 6th place is Episode 9, the series finale. Now, I think this episode is far better than the ones below it, but I do think that it was basically what was missing from the first 3 episodes all rushed into one episode. I feel like some of the payoffs weren't as good as we wanted them to, and I feel like Agatha was set up as such a great villain before, but she kind of felt like she was like dumbed down, and her power and Wanda's power felt like it was too overpowered, and Agatha felt like she was too weak for Wanda. But I think most of the characters' payoffs were pretty good, except, what's his name, Evan Peters, Quicksilver, in the Fox movies. I think his payoff as Ralph Boner was really unpleasant because everyone wanted him to be Quicksilver and like further on in the MCU, but that was very disappointing. But other than that, I feel like the episode was fun to watch, but I feel like it didn't really stick the landing of the entire season, and I don't think it deserved to be the season finale. And in the number 5 spot is Episode 7, Breaking the Fourth Wall. So now we get into the kind of area where these are very enjoyable episodes, like most of the season. And I think that this episode, I think I would have put it higher, but I definitely enjoyed this episode because it ended in Agatha All Along, which we are all singing for the rest of the show. And also, I really liked the sort of like, this was kind of the era where I grew up in, so I could relate to a lot of the things that was going on. And I really enjoyed it, and I thought that it was really funny, but still kind of giving us that mystery of what was going on with like the milk carton. And those were sort of the things that stood out most to me, like the what Agatha was doing, and she was like being the cameraman, and it was definitely breaking the fourth wall, kind of like starting to wonder. Also, the episode before had expanded the hex, so it was cool to see the carnival that had become of the sword base, sort of. And it was very interesting to see what they would all turn into once they got absorbed by the hex. Next on the list is episode 6, the all-new Halloween Spooktacular. Now, I think this definitely went along with the payoff of the end of episode 5 and made it really fun, and I loved everyone's comic costumes that they had on. And I think this was really fun that that kind of like continued with that like sort of like, oh my god, what's going on here? And I think that Vision, like going out of, sort of trying to go out of the hex, was really cool. And like I talked about before, at the end where Wanda expands the hex, I think that was a really like amazing moment where she like kind of like lost control, and she just wanted to take control of everything again. Because Vision was starting to break free. And I think that was great acting by everybody, and the kids were really good. But other than that, I feel like this episode kind of lacked a little bit of the action everybody likes, but I think it was overall pretty good. Breaking the top 3 is episode 4, We Interrupt This Program. Now, I think this was a great episode that sort of changed up the mix of the show from the first 3 episodes that were at the bottom of the list. But I think this episode was so fun, and I love Jimmy Woo and Monica and their chemistry and all the things that were going back to the previous episodes and sort of like giving some clarity. And I really liked it, like how they were all like sort of like trying to wonder what was going on, like the fans. And I think all their like high-tech gear and stuff was really cool to see how it transformed into like old stuff based on what Wanda, the sitcom she had in. And I really liked this episode. And I think it really was really fun to see how everything was going on, and it was a great change. Just shy of the number 1 spot, in second place, is episode 8, Previously On. Now, I think this episode was great to the entire MCU, just to show how Wanda's origin story and kind of given a little more clarity based on her first appearance in Avengers Age of Ultron. And I think the whole scene with the Mind Stone was really cool. And the fact that like Agatha was like taunting her throughout like her entire life. I love the sitcom part with her parents and seeing the bomb and seeing how she might have had her powers before she touched the Mind Stone. And I really enjoyed this episode, and I feel like it was a nice break from all the other stuff that was going on. But then again, still focusing on the main plot and leading into that finale that I said wasn't that great, but still concluded some things. And the best episode of WandaVision Season 1, probably the only season, is episode 5, On a Very Special Episode. Now, I think this episode did an incredible job incorporating what we saw in episode 4 and what we saw in episodes 1, 2, 3. It showed the sitcom, but it showed some things going wrong like we saw later. And also, it showed those sort of like flashes between outside the hex and inside the hex, and how we saw Monica reacting and everybody else. And I think it was amazing to see Agatha sort of like break character and the kids grow up. and I think it was probably the best representation of like the peak of this show, where they were able to balance everything and like show enough of the sitcom that people like didn't get bored of the sort of like spy sort of aspect that the sword agents had, and sort of like the mystery part, and go back to like the funny parts, but still have a great balance. And I think this shows what this show could do, and I think it landed right in the middle of the season, and I think it was a great episode. And that is all 9 episodes of WandaVision. Stay tuned, because soon I'm going to do a ranking of all 6 episodes of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think this season was a great season. It was so much fun, and I can't wait to see what they'll do next with Wanda and Vision.